1, 2. One, two.
Let's unmute this thing. Hello. Oh, it's creepy. There is a huge echo. Okay. So hello people in this room and in other rooms and in the internet and everywhere who is watching me. This is creepy, but yeah, I'm used to this shit. I'm Marcia, and...
Oh, okay. I was checking the feed.
Good.
Live feedback.
Yeah, I don't need it. So I'm Marcia. I'm with Role organizing the AWS Finland Meetup, if you don't know about it. And today we are sponsored by Nitor. So thank you very much. And we are having a little agenda. First is me speaking and welcoming you all and giving you a little bit recap on the year as well for the AWS Finland Meetup. Then I will say my impression of a first-time goer to reInvent, the things that shock me and how it's been for me. If you've never been to reInvent, maybe you find it interesting. If you have been to reInvent, you will say, we all know that stuff. And then Pasi will give a more smart talk about things that he has been doing at reInvent for the last 4 years, so he's an expert on the matter. And then we have a short break, and we have Adrian giving some demos and talking about the launches. So I think we can be here until 9, if I'm not wrong. Yes. Okay. I will be leaving before. So first, I want to do a little wrap-up of the AWS Meetup group. And I think we had a lot of events this year, and I'm very happy. We organized like 9 meetups, so almost every month of the year. So yes, in different companies. And it was really, really fun to do this. So I'm very happy for everybody that sponsored our meetup and speak at our events. So thank you very much. Also, we organized the first AWS Community Days in the Nordics. Now, the second one is coming in Copenhagen, and I will show some slides that I have not read, that Adrian just put to me about it. But basically, we are looking for speakers and sponsors, but I will share a little bit more about that in 2 seconds. And also, we hosted our first AWS Girls' Night, and I hope we do more to include beginners in this community, not only women, but also people that are starting with AWS. That's at least one of my goals for next year. And our community has grown by 500 members in a community that is 1,700, so that's quite impressive for the year of life that this has been. So thank you very much. And if you want to host our events next year or you want to speak, contact me or Role. You can find our information in the meetup.com. We are always looking for speakers, so even if the hosting is full for the year, because we might have 12 or 9 or 10 meetups a year, but we are always looking for speakers, and that's a great way to promote what you're doing and show your work to the world. So please come and talk to us. I also have a giveaway during reInvent. The Wittig brothers, that are the writers of this book, told me that I should give this in my community. So I have this small giveaway. In the coffee table there is a little bag with some Post-its and pens, and you should write your name and put it in the bag. By the end of the day, whoever stays, after Adrian show us all the cool demos, I will remove some papers from the hat, and whoever is here and is the first paper will get the book. And easy as that. So you should go and do that in the break or whenever. And I want to share a little bit of my first impressions as a first-timer reinventor. So first, I'm, if you know me, Marcia, I have a YouTube channel where I do serverless content. So because I do so much content, AWS nominated me as a serverless hero. So my experience in re:Invent is a little bit different than most of everybody because I get access to some cool perks. Like first Monday we had dinner with Chef Bar, for example, and Bernard came and said hello. We have front row seats in the keynote, so there is kind of a nice way to welcome me and a lot of the serverless heroes and heroes in general to re:Invent. First of all, I was impressed with the amount of people. People told me that there will be a lot of people. And everybody was complaining from last year that they were queuing a lot. And I have to say, I didn't queue anything. For me, everything works super smoothly. I think the app and everything was so well organized that I didn't suffer. It was hard to navigate in the amount of people, but everything was very well organized. And I didn't attend too many sessions, so maybe that's why I didn't suffer the pain. I only Monday attend 2 sessions, and then I didn't make it to any others. So maybe if you have been going to sessions, you suffer it differently. But for me, I just got in the sessions. That was it. Because my priority was to meet people. If you don't know these guys, these are the other serverless heroes. So if you're interested in serverless, you should follow all of them in Twitter. CEO of Serverless Framework, the CTO and one of the main authors of A Cloud Guru, Shan Chu, one of the most prolific content creators of serverless, Ben Quijoe, he writes a lot of really interesting things about Roomba. Forrest Brassel, he creates really fun comics, podcasts, and all kind of contents related to serverless, so really fun guy to follow. And these two are the authors of a serverless book from Manning as well, and they also create a lot of content through testing and Alexa, so Alex and Slobodan. So they're really cool guys to follow. For me, the most impressive part was the eating. So it felt like eating, like we were cows, and there was all these waiters guiding us through the parking lot. This is a parking lot with white tables, cloths, really fancy. And I don't know how many 50 buffet tables were there. And they were guiding you, walk, 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 walk. And I was like, yes, I walk. But you always arrive to an empty buffet table with warm food and like everything was available. So I was super impressed. I don't know how many people were eating in this place. It was just crazy. I think for this, it's worth to go to re:Invent, to feel like a cow and be fed amazing food because the desserts were incredible. So that was very impressive for me. And as I say, I cannot complain about the seats. So my seat was in the 3rd row, and basically this is the middle of the stage. So I was seeing the Andy and Werner here. So that was a really cool spot. And I was in the 3rd row because the other 2 rows were full of community heroes that arrived very early, and I was too lazy to wake up at 6. But these guys came very early to find the best spot in the house. So thank you, AWS. The last thing I want to say is bring comfortable shoes. On Monday, I overwork myself, I die, and I recover. So, and I only was in Venetian and Mirage, that they are across the road. So I didn't left those 2 hotels. So I was very lame reinventor. I didn't go anywhere besides the MGM for 1 night in the bus and come back. So this is only walking into 2 hotels. So bring comfortable shoes. And the last thing I want to say, my top 5 launches, I think Adrian will go through the ones that are available in his presentation, but I have to mention this because I was super excited of all the launches. First one is API gateway support for web sockets. If you don't know what is that, it's the ability to make serverless, real-time, and both-way communication, so I'm very excited. But I could not find even a blog post about it, so it's kind of a weird launch that Adrian is looking at me with funny face, but well, I don't know. This one happened, the serverless Aurora API support happened before re:Invent, but I'm also very excited because it's the way to use Aurora in a serverless way that you don't need to do any kind of weird magic with VPCs and opening connections and things like that. So basically, we can use Aurora like Dynamo. Still, it's not very performant, but I think there is a light in the tunnel there. We are seeing the future. Also, I'm really excited about DynamoDB transactions because that gives a lot of power to Dynamo. Now we can roll back things if we update multiple tables, and I think that something was missing that you always, when you were doing DynamoDB operations, you have to add that logic in your code, and now it should be out of the box. CloudWatch Insights, I think that's something that should have been there forever, but it was not. So I'm very happy that now I don't need to rely on a third-party service to do my analytics in my logs. And Lambda layers and bring your own code to Lambda gives a lot of possibilities for developers to do COBOL in Lambda. I hope you don't do that, but it's possible now. And also to remove the amount of dependencies in your lambdas and make it faster to deploy, and also with prone less to errors. So those are my favorite launches, and I think you will see some in my videos in YouTube if you're interested in getting more into them, or then Adrian will show us some demos. So thank you very much. That's all I had to say, and now I move to Pasi with a more interesting talk.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, I forgot to show the community thingy. I'm a very bad person.
No problem.
This was not in my plans, but I promise. But I don't know what I'm saying there, so I will just show it. But basically, we are looking for sponsors and speakers and whoever. Yeah, always speakers. And I think it's really cool. At least it was. Does it appear here? No. Google. I think the one in Helsinki was really cool. We got a lot of people participating, but the idea is to try to make it as Nordic as possible, so not only people in Copenhagen go there, so also people from Finland. So this is the date where you can attend to the event. And it's quite close, 1 hour by plane, so that's the idea. Once a year we gather all together and try to make this event as Nordic as possible. And we have almost 7,000 members in the whole Nordics, so it's quite a big community. And I think with the Slack, I don't know if you're part of the Slack. If you're not, you should send me a message to me or Rolle that we can add you. But there is a Slack channel where we are all gathering together. And I think that's also a way to get the Nordic community talking to each other and helping out with different problems. And yeah, so we have 500 users in the Slack. So yeah. So it's a full-day event at 19th of February, 400 people, and it's the second one after Helsinki. So Amazon is supporting this event, so thank you, Amazon. And we are looking for speakers, and we are looking for sponsors, mostly for speakers. So I don't know who to contact. Martin, Rolle, there's a contact page?
You, Martin,
no, me no, because I'm not organizing this year.
You can pass on.
But sure, I can pass it on. But Rolle is organizing this, and Martin, that is the lead from Copenhagen, are organizing this. So if you want to speak, it's a great opportunity to visit Copenhagen and have an impact in the community. So please go for it, because it's very fun. So yeah, I think that's it.
Worth mentioning, it's only for the community, by the community, right?
Yes.
We just give money and you guys do the rest. And last year it was totally cool. There's some very interesting talks on AWS marketing and things like this. If you're allergic to AWS marketing.
It's like the Meetup, but like bigger.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. I'll move this behind. So, okay, welcome on my behalf. I represent the host here, so I'm from Nitor. This photo is a picture of there was a big wall where you could just draw anything, and obviously I went and tried to draw our logo terribly on the wall right away. I got a pretty nice spot there, right in the center, big letters, but my drawing wasn't impeccable, but it's good enough, so I'll show it off here too. So my name is Pasi Niemi. I'm the principal cloud architect for Nitor. Nitor, just a short amount of fact is, we're founded in 2007, 21 million last year revenue. We're going to increase that a lot this year. We employ 170 engineers, so there's about 140 of our own guys, and then the rest are subcontractors. And we have an office in Sweden as well, in Stockholm. And we made advanced consulting partner yesterday, so we have a reason to celebrate, and that's why the sauna is warm afterwards. And I shall at least enjoy a couple of beers. Or, Prosecco or whatever. So the point of view of this little talk was to be about that. I've been there for 4 years. This hoodie is from 2015. The picture is from 2015 2016 when me and Mika were in the team that won the game day event. And 2017 we came second in the hackathon, and we took part this year. I'll talk about it a bit later. But 4 times now it's changed quite a bit. The first 2015 it was only Venetian, so one venue. There wasn't the registration for the talks wasn't mandatory. Basically everybody queued for everything, and the queues weren't that large. I think we had there was less than 20,000 people. There was maybe 15,000 or something like that participants. Next year it grew by 5,000, and then last year it was 32,000, and this year it was 50,000. So it's been growing a lot. This year we had a bit of a problem getting there. Last year we went with Norwegian through Stockholm, which is a nice connection to Las Vegas, but that got cancelled because Sweden put a tax on flights based on the length of the flight. So Stockholm, Las Vegas is quite long, and Norwegian moved all of that into Heathrow, I think. So Gatwick. Okay, well, London anyway, and it wasn't. The connections weren't great. So we went with SAS to Las Vegas and then drove, and the end result was that the guy spent 5 hours in this traffic jam. There's a turned over truck.
We flew to Los Angeles.
Yeah, so yes, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, and this thing went on for 5 hours. The whole trip usually takes about 5 hours altogether, and you have time to gas up and everything in between, but it was 11 hours. I was waiting for I got lucky. I got called into Chicago, and I flew in from Chicago to Las Vegas, and I waited all night for these guys. Where are you? We're still in the traffic jam. Yeah, so the general kind of organization, you get there, you register, you get your swag, you write your name on the wall, and get oriented where this is the lunch place. It is quite impressive, so you need to add it. Yeah, and it was super smooth this year. The registration was fast, no lines for the swag. Some years there's been a huge rush for the swag for some reason, that they open it later than the registration, and then everybody rushes it at the same time. So it's super well organized altogether. You kind of learn about how the commute works, the buses on the first day, and last year they went on a ring around the venues, and this year it was between every venue there was a bus, so that kind of cut down the length of the travel. But still, the worst case is it started raining, which it doesn't often in Las Vegas, and then suddenly everything shut down. So suddenly you need to queue up for an hour to get into the bus, and then the bus is quick, but because there's not a lot of traffic, but still there are bad cases for the commute. Our kind of focus in the beginning was on a hackathon. We were there last year as well. Timo is the only team member in addition to me, that were there for a second year in a row in the hackathon. The 4 of the rest of the guys were new. They changed it a bit for this year. They had a kind of a maximum team size of 5, and they didn't let us know in advance. We had 6 guys. We had to haggle to get all of the guys onto the same team, but I guess we convinced them that we invest a lot of money in trying to train these guys and fly them over there and get them out of paying customer relationships for that week. So let us do it together. We chose this year, the organization was Goodwill, basically a basic charity, tries to help people in need, like out of jobs or disabilities or homelessness, for example, and then get them jobs and get them on their way to building a kind of a sustainable life. And we had a concept of having a kind of a sparring buddy for every people in need of help, and a mobile app that would connect those people, and then maybe give information about the progress to both of them, so that they can share the journey more. But we didn't get picked for the final. The organization picks their favorite for the final, and then there's one for each organization in the finals. We obviously don't agree with the organization about their choice, but it's another. Yeah, they had a huge slide of all of the AWS services on the architecture. But ours was more focused, and also the network was crappy, so that we kind of got bitten. We were trying to do it with React Native, and then downloading the app to your phone would sometimes take like 15 minutes, and it was a pain to try and develop it. But yeah, those were our choices, and I guess we live and die with them. It is a good experience. I think everyone involved learned a lot. We got together 3 times before the hackathon here and kind of did a try run of a hackathon for the whole day. We invented ideas that we want to try. And people obviously learn a lot, get to know these colleagues a lot better. And we have a diverse group, so there's Alana, our designer, and well, we had a back-end oriented group this year, but basically we tried to kind of get front-end guys and back-end guys and designers all together into one group, and so that we can kind of get a holistic solution together. Last year we came in second with the organization called Federation for Internet Alerts, and we're still in contact with them, and we're actually developing an app for the police in the States with FIA. And that's why I was actually in Chicago right before reInvent. So to kick that off, so it was kind of also, and that's an actual project that we're gonna execute now. And also business-wise, it's been good. But I think the central theme is that people learn and get to know each other. And obviously it's a great experience to go there. So the rest of the conference, my seats, as you can see, weren't quite as good.
You were in the front row.
Well, it was pretty close, but right at the other end. I was kind of admiring because there's like a 200-meter wall here of logos, and they don't repeat. They made a presentation that's 200 meters wide, and then every one of those is an AWS customer. Kind of impressive. The keynotes are obviously interesting. Last year they tried to do something weird with Werner's one, and they didn't do any major launches there. So this year they went back to kind of having lots and lots and lots of new stuff, which is obviously what people come there to see. How many heads roll on the expo floor. There's always a couple of. On Monday they announced SFTP, and there was a managed SFTP S3 upload company right at the entrance of the expo. I bet they paid some sweet money for that spot. The way I approached this year, I guess this is something that I've learned from last year, is that I picked the most interesting thing for the everyday, and I only took like expert level, so the things that start with 4, because for me anything below that is kind of things that I might as well follow on a YouTube if it's interesting, or most of the time it's something that is either not in my area or already know. So I picked the most interesting thing, and then I picked other stuff in that venue. So I filled the day up with other stuff in that venue, and you'd get a full day, and you don't have to move a lot. But to do that, you need to be there when the enrollment opens. So they tell you when it opens, and it's late at night, finish time, and I think it was 11 or something. 8. Okay, but anyway, it went on. You try to fill your week. It's in the evening, but you need to be there and plan your schedule. And the thing is that obviously there's launches, and they're going to announce the things that go with those launches at the event. So you're going to have to be ready at the keynote to cancel, try and book the new stuff. This year, the app was really heavy on caching, so it wouldn't reload the new sessions before you unload it from your phone and then reload it again. So I got lucky with you can see the Deep Racer, for example. People couldn't book I went to the session right after the keynote. I was lucky because I had a session right next to it. And I just said, what is that? There's an empty queue. Oh, it's the Deep Racer. Maybe I'll go there. But the point is that people didn't know about the session soon enough because you actually had to leave the keynote early to make it. Keynote was in Venetian and the session was in MGM. And obviously they let the session out only after the announcement has been made and nobody was able to book it, and I was just able to just walk into the session because I happened to be right next door. I got to go also to the RoboMaker, which was launched to that session, but that was able to, at that point I knew that, okay, I have to unload the app and reload it to get the sessions, and I was able to book that session. I think for that reason there wasn't a lot of competition right at when the announcement was made. Last year, kind of the same thing for the Deep Lens, and the app jammed. It showed me the sessions, but it couldn't just enroll, and it was timing out. And I was patient enough. I got into that too. So I have a Deep Lens from last year, and now the Deep Racer from this year. Yeah, it's there in the lounge. You can check it out. You can't do anything with it until you have the track. AWS need to start selling the track.
Oh, so you cannot put like a white tape in the floor?
You can, but it needs to be close enough to the simulation to be of any use. So I guess you can do it, but it's not going to be.
And you can redo the algorithm if you want, right? You can retrain the whole thing.
Well, the tracks are provided by AWS, so they're the ones that.
Simulation track.
Yeah, the simulation tracks. Obviously, it doesn't have to be exactly the same thing, but it has to be close enough for the image recognition to work. Replay had a cool player, Skrillex, this year. He was back, and I think that was a big deal. A lot of people were surprised by that. Skrillex would come back. And replay parties is always cool. It's a huge thing, and it's something to see. So yeah, I did get it. You can check it out in the lounge. Hopefully, we'll figure out something for the track. We'll order it from a manufacturer in Finland or something. We'll make it work. So, in addition to the actual events, obviously there's lots to see. There's Fremont experience is always something that you should see when you go to Las Vegas, because it's quite something else. Timo went mountain biking. There's obviously Las Vegas itself. The wedding chapels are funny. They're on the way to downtown to Fremont from the Strip. We managed to book a V8 Dodge Charger on the way back, and then we stopped at Peggy Sue's 50s Diner, which is a famous diner on the way to Los Angeles. And yeah, all in all, good times. It's a really, when you go for it just for the week, the time difference is really taxing. So it's a hard trip. It's really taxing. But yeah, there's good times to be had as well. I was lucky. I was in Chicago for the week before, so I kind of got used to the time difference before I went there. So that's it for me. I can answer any questions if you have. Okay. Actually, there was a session that, for me, it's kind of personal. I work for MTV, so it was a live streaming with Elemental Kit and Cloud. They had CloudFormation stacks for Elemental Kit, except all of the resources were custom resources that they have coded up. But anyway, there's now a couple of CloudFormation stack you can get a live streaming, all the way to CloudFront. There's a Media Live that ingests it, Media Package that packages it, and there's even an integration to ad serving, so server-side ad serving, which is kind of cool. So that was it was relevant for me. That's why it was the best for me. I like the Deep Racer thing. It's fun too, and RoboMaker is kind of cool. There was a hands-on session too. So. Yeah. Anything else?
Your favorite launch? What's your stuff? Yeah.
Well, they were pretty good. I guess WebSockets is kind of cool for me. One thing that I could add was the ALB for Lambda. That was kind of cool. And that's going to get some use, certainly. S3 stuff also is relevant for a customer. MTV has all of the videos on S3, so we're going to probably turn on intelligent tiering for that. They have work, the SFTP upload is something that they might want to use. But yeah, I think the stuff for serverless, the layers and the custom runtimes and all of that, that was the kind of the main thing. Yeah, we have guys that work for the banks, so they might want to try that out for sure. But it's not really the point for COBOL without the database. It doesn't really make sense, but yeah, still.
Somebody implemented that already. I think
yeah, you can do it, but the point of COBOL is that it's tightly integrated with the transactional, huge transactional database.
Main tip for the newcomers.
Well, yeah, good shoes. You walk a lot, and I think, you know, plan your days one menu. So, because you might get lucky and change venue in half an hour, but you might get unlucky and it takes an hour and then you miss the next thing. So your day is kind of ruined with that.
I kind of disagree with that one because everybody recommends that one, and I disagree strongly because I chose 2 venues per day, and I think it was optimal because you don't stay inside one hotel all the freaking day. You get to walk back and forth just to breathe some fresh air every now and then like you choose the close enough hotels, you know, like you can walk within 15 minutes, like I don't know, Venetian.
Yeah. Okay, then you need to kind of understand how they locate it, because from Aria to Venetian, for example, that's a half an hour walk.
Yeah, you choose like the closest ones, of course.
Yeah.
You can't choose MGM and Venetian, then it's going to be crazy. But I did that as well. But anyway, like for me, like 2 hotels were optimal actually.
Yeah, sure. They kind of also, the venues have like themes, so you might want to have like a theme day that, okay, today I do Alexa things and tomorrow I do SageMaker things.
I don't think they're organized like that this year. They were all mixed up this year.
Well, it kind of happened for at least for me. I picked that. Okay, I want to go that one, and the rest of them kind of lined up on the same theme. Than when I was looking at.
For example, there was only workshops in MGM. There was no sessions there. And for example, I think many of the SageMaker stuff was in Mirage.
Yeah, we did the SageMaker session in Venetian. So
okay.
Workshops.
Because I was in one workshop in Venetian.
Yeah, and I took only workshops. For me, that's the best way to learn, and that's when you get access to some experts. Like for the elemental stuff, there were elemental product guys there that knew their stuff. So I could ask them, for example, okay, I want to stream RTMP from a camera. How do I do that? And the guy would come and help me out with that. So I think the best value for me, at least, is in the workshops.
I can actually concur that because I was in the same, probably not the same workshop, but the same team, the elemental live session. I also work for a media company, and we had a good discussion with the people from Time Warner that are also doing media stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a really good way to learn and understand new stuff.
Now, so you get to meet the people that actually work on it, though. So they're relevant people for the subject matter.
Some of the workshops relied quite heavily on doing stuff step by step, and the instructors just didn't tell anything about anything. They just wanted to do it.
Yeah, I can understand that. It also will require some kind of active participation. You can ask questions and stretch it a little bit, because most of the time the instructions as such, you can just run through them quite quickly, and then you have time to kind of expand on that.
CloudFormation.
Yeah, and while CloudFormation is deploying, you can ask questions as well.
Like in my case, as quick as Wi-Fi works.
Oh, well,
that was the problem the first day actually.
For me, the first day was a Wi-Fi.
Every year we get the same feedback on workshops is people that want more slides, and people will say, I come in the workshop, don't give me slides.
Yeah.
Literally, like, it's 50-50. So there is also, like, we went chalk talks for the people that wanted to become more hands-on with slides, and that was a new try this year, so it's hard to satisfy 50,000 people.
These two guys from the Slovan and Alex wrote the serverless book had a workshop on Alexa and doing some of the stuff there, and they said that half of the people were there with not knowing how to deploy a Lambda, and it was a 400 workshop. So it was like, oh man, like how you can make everybody happy, but it's just impossible.
Apparently there was a data lake workshop of a level 4X, which started with the questions, do you guys know what S3 is? So,
well, those guys have maybe gone through giving workshops before there, because my friends were like, "Wow, nobody."
We always get that on the forums.
Okay, I guess it's time for a break.
Go and put
Refreshments.
your name in the bag. It's in there next to the coffee machine.
Thank you. 1, 2, do you? Oh, now I hear myself even better. I lost people. It's nice. Everyone was interested in more the fun part of the reinvent. Hi everyone. It's nice to be here. I don't know if you don't know me. I'm part of the technical evangelist team at AWS, based in Helsinki actually, for the last 3 years. Joined AWS as solutions architect. I moved to evangelist 2 years ago, and as was my 6th reinvent. 3 as a customer and 3 as an employee. It's much more intense as an employee, actually, especially because we get to do a lot of the organization and things like this. But to jump on some of the recommendation as well and things like this, what I always suggest is most of the sessions can be seen on YouTube. So Chalk Talks are not recorded and are pretty amazing. They are like 60, 70 people. It's very hands-on, very interactive. So I had quite a few of those. And literally after 2 minutes, people started to ask questions. So it went like question-based presentation. And it was pretty awesome. I always suggest these ones. Workshops, some of them are pretty awesome as well. Especially you get to have people directly in the room. So for me, if you go to reInvent, really that's what I would suggest. Focus on Chalk Talks and workshops, and then definitely do all the hackathon and stuff like this. I'll tell you the story. I got my job because I participated in a hackathon, right? And I'll tell you the story quickly. I went to reInvent, did the hackathon. My team got second. We got to meet a lot of the architects and a lot of the folks, the service teams, and I got into connections and kept those connections open, and 6 months later, they opened a position in Finland. I pinged the guy, and he was like, "Oh, we met in reInvent, yeah." And like I was on the call, like literally 5 minutes after that, and they put me in the loop and got the job 3 months after that. So that's literally how I got my job. So yeah, reInvent is pretty cool, but really for networking. I wonder if I can get rid of those icons there. Let's try it like this. All right. So just to give you some idea, really, it's literally 50,000 people. There's a short video, just so that you see what it is, really. It's quite short, so at least it always starts with the Holly Drive. It's a traditional kind of thing that we do. Then Midnight Minus, actually the first time we do also announcement. Usually we had James Hamilton that did a lot of presentations, but this year was someone different. The Tatonka is a traditional Amazon, how fast you can eat chicken wings, and how many of them. Robot Maker, some of the stuff. So at least I think it's something you have to see once in your life. You know, it's pretty impressive, to be honest. So just the marathon in the morning is actually packed with people. It's literally quite cool. And the pub crawl, probably the most important thing is actually when you network. So you go from one pub to another, and it's definitely the time of networking, especially for Nordic people. After a few beers, that's how things happen. That's the track that you need to build for that. So. And Werner always gets a DJ on stage with him when he does his keynote, which is pretty cool. Anyway. And you can already book your date for next year, actually. We already announced the dates. So it's the 2nd and 6th of December next year, right? Yes, it's going to be first week of December. All right, so
there's literally this year has been quite dramatic in terms of numbers of features and things like this, and that's how it looks like. I'm not at all in any mood, or I don't think it's the right audience to go through every one of them. So if you know me, you know what kind of things I like, right? So there's a bunch of things here. This is the overall kind of agenda. Stuff I like is architectures and serverless. So I'm going to focus on some of the stuff that I think are pretty cool, and especially that I can demo. We had a discussion a little bit about the previews, why we have so many previews. Just to give you an idea of the scale of things, when we launch the service, it needs to be able to scale right away to 15 million requests per second at least, right? So it's not something you can just, hey, we have a new service, let's go GA. It's actually the phase of going from development to GA is harder and harder as more customers we have, right? So the operational excellence that we want is very high. So that's why we make a lot of announcements in preview so that people with interest can sign up, and then we can start improving the service, right? And this is how we scale. And so I understand it's a bit tough to say, okay, it's in preview, I need to sign up. But it's also, if it's GA, it's good to use, right? So just wanted to say that a little bit, because I know we always hear a lot of comments, especially this year. There's been a lot of stuff announced in previews, from standard storage, you know, what Andy Jassy called the unsexy kind of things. And they are unsexy, but they're actually the foundational services. S3 is definitely the monster of the internet. And the operation behind it is massive, and it's used pretty much everywhere. Two, we launched a new, base station for talking with satellites, right? So this kind of stuff. So there's been a lot of things. Some of the most, let's say, the launch that for me really, really important. Of course, when we talk about global expansion, for me it means two things. It means that we have a lot of regions, but we also have a lot of POPs, right? So the point of presence, so edge, at the edge. And that means that it's a network that we want to manage. And I like managing all networks. So actually, we did announce last year that it started in 2016, but that now we have a fully connected network, so a corporate network that goes around the globe. It's a dual 100 gigs Ethernet links between all our regions, connect all the POPs, so that we can actually really give global type of level of services, right? And today, we launched Sweden, right? Just right today. If you haven't seen, I'm... Well, I didn't see it. I didn't do the map. Just blame the graphic designers. But it's a good point. What the hell? I didn't see that. And one of the very, very cool stuff that comes from having a global network is actually global accelerators. I don't know if you noticed that launch, but for me, it's one of probably the top launch. You know, a lot of companies do work with DNS, but actually a lot of companies do work with IP addresses, right? When you want to connect. And the problem with let's say, global networks is if I have my workload in US and I have a user here in Europe, my path from my location to the user is actually going around the internet, can be rerouted, can be prone to a lot of latency-based hopping in the network. So it's very, very bad. With global network, we actually remove that. It's now we give you what we call anycast IP address, and those anycast IP address are announced by the edge of the network. So that means that any user that connects to an IP address, this anycast IP address, will directly connect to the closest edge and then go through the corporate Amazon network to the closest location. So that means now you have a mean to
go as fast as possible to your network location, right, to your source. And that's super, super awesome. I'll actually do a demo right now at the end because I want to combine it with a couple of other stuff, okay? But that's what it means. You transform hopping through the internet into a route that is actually closest to the edge, because Anycast IP address uses a protocol called BGP that actually gives you the closest edge, and then it goes through our network, right? So that you have a very fast network. And the cool stuff, it's not the end, is since the network IP address are announced from our edge network, we can do pretty instant failover. So that means if you have Anycast IPs, and you have different source, and one of the source network fails through health check, we can announce it immediately at the edge. So there's no cache of the DNS, there's no cache on the clients because clients don't cache IP address. And very often, problem with clients is they don't respect cache. Right? So you might have two DNS or CNAMEs and they are cached on the client. If you want to do a failover, it can be a big problem. So using Anycast IP is actually used all over the place for people to do massive failover. So for me, this is one actually of the most important launch, even though it sounds weird as global accelerator. But it uses combined the power of having the network not going through the internet, right? So, and I'll show you how it works. On the compute updates, definitely this is something that caught my eye. So you probably have been using auto-scaling for your workloads. Predictive scaling is actually listening to the real usage pattern of your application, through the load balancers, and start to understand how it scales. And it uses machine learning under the hood, like through forecasting kind of algorithm, and will design an auto-scaling policies and make it as predictive as possible. Right? So that means that you can really have an efficient use of your workload. And this is quite interesting because we go into the first service that combines machine learning and scaling, and I really like that idea. I think combining both is very interesting. And even if at the beginning it might not be 100% perfect, but the system will learn your workload over time, right? So it listens and then will react and will adjust and eventually get very good at it. It's bear in mind it's not for unpredictable workloads. So if you have voting applications, that you have very spiky, unpredictable, not for you. It's for sustained type of workloads, like things that you really have an understanding that it respect the pattern. This is something super interesting. You have the marketplace for EC2, EMIs, and that's been hugely popular. We launched that pretty much from the early years of EC2. Now we've added the marketplace for containers, right? So that you can, if you have an application and you containerize it, you actually can sell it through the marketplace. And this is very good. I don't know if you're aware, you can sell AMI containers, but also APIs, right? APIs that are exposed through API gateways, you can sell that through a marketplace API as well. So now we've covered the whole spectrum of kind of compute for marketplace, which in my opinion is great because it gives opportunity for customers to deliver, let's say, what they do to other customers. And they can be directly deployed on ECS, EKS, or Fargate as well. So that's directly natively integrated with our container services. On the toolkit side, we launched a plethora of toolkits for VS Code, IntelliJ, and PyCharm, which in my opinion some of it were long missing. So now we can cover Cloud9. Cloud9 is online type of IDE. If you've used Lambda on the console, it's already using Cloud9 on the hood. So it's a way to do that. It's actually quite nice because you can just connect through a workspace and then get your stuff done, move to another computer, continue, and things like this. The only problem is local support. Of course, you need to be connected, but it's getting a lot of traction and a lot of, let's say, new plugins are being built for Cloud9, and it's, in my opinion, in Lambda, it's pretty cool. So you can do hacking around. But definitely, those toolkits are going to be pretty interesting because they allow developers to use their own ideas, and we don't anymore prefer ours. On the language side, we did add Ruby for the Ruby lovers. Any Ruby lovers here? Nope. It's the wrong audience. Python?
Why was PowerShell before Ruby? That's my question.
What's that?
PowerShell before Ruby. Why did that happen?
Let's move on. That's because we have folks that actually built the PowerShell working for us now. The cool stuff is now you can actually bring your custom runtime, right? And that's definitely something that is pretty cool. We actually launched Ruby through this custom runtime, and there's already tons of different people that have provided runtimes in any language you want. It's pretty funny, but it's good to see. And we also open source a bunch of all the runtimes, of course, right? So that you can play with this. On the Lambda level, this is for me as well something that is definitely interesting. The layers, right, are pretty cool. So previously, when you deployed Lambda functions, you had to package your dependency in libraries for each of the deployments you had, right? It has to be in the package. Now, if many of your functions share the same libraries or dependency, you can create a layer with these dependencies and make it reused by all the Lambda functions. That means you can remove all that code from the Lambda side. And
one thing I learned, put it in a different stack of CloudFormation. If not, the Lambda layer updates all the time and it's pointless.
Correct. Right. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that you have to learn how to use it. But I'll do some demos of that and show you actually how to create a layer in Python. We'll do step by step. For me, it's really cool because it allows you to make clean code. And kind of code reusability is what people like, and it's in the idea of forcing people to do libraries, right? So actually, you force people to create functional kind of programming, which I like. So I think it's definitely good direction. We also added what's called nested application for repository. So if you've used serverless, we had the application repository in serverless before, so you could launch a stack that was predefined. And now you can actually nest them, so you can use a stack, combine it with another, and create a type of application, which is pretty cool because, for example, if you had a stack on the application repository that does, let's say, image resizing, and you want to combine this with, let's say, calling recognition, then you can now have a composition. So it's definitely something that is interesting and that is cool. Now, for me, definitely ALB support big time, right? ALB is our elastic load balancer for applications. So application load balancer is in latest versions of our load balancer, which, in my opinion, is pretty cool. Because now you can integrate that with Lambda. So that means you can give an API endpoint to a Lambda function without API gateway. When we launched API gateway, it had transformation templates. Then we made the proxy, which made it quite simple. But what we realized is most people actually do use straight proxies, so they don't need all the capability of API gateway, which are throttling, all this kind of cool stuff. It's great, but they might just want to have an application load balancer in front of it, and then call that through CloudFront, and have some Lambda functions do some of the work. Now, the gotcha here is you can't have one ALB with multiple Lambda functions, right? So currently, at the moment, it's one ALB to one Lambda functions. That means you need to have and I have to say the word, the monolith is back. Your monolith Lambda function type of things. Now bear in mind that it's not meant for replacing API gateway. It's not meant for moving all your web type of functions that you have beyond API gateway now in front of ALB. It's not meant for that. It's meant for different type of functions. So that's why we currently launch like this. But it's definitely been already one of the top customer feedbacks is ALB has path. Why can't I have Lambda functions for each of my path? Makes total sense. Eventually, we do listen to customers, so eventually I think stuff will happen. Marcia mentioned it. Pretty cool stuff. Support for WebSockets. This is definitely good for workloads, especially I met a customer a few days ago, and that called taxi APIs. For example, they need to figure out the positions of taxis or other dependencies, and they have everything beyond API gateway, and most of the APIs for taxis or some of the services they call are way beyond 30 seconds, which is API gateway timeout. So what they want is actually keep an open connections, and then as the API updates itself, then they would feedback. So definitely this is the use case, being able to update, live your applications through WebSockets. WebSockets is bidirectional communication. So before you had just one way to your backend, no way back up. Now you actually have the bidirectional, so you can have more interactive application. So that's pretty cool in my opinion. There's going to be, I'm sure Marcia is going to do a cool video in the next week. So
well, it's not even in preview.
Yeah, but you probably do have access, no?
No.
Not yet.
Give me access.
You're a serverless hero, right? So eventually you'll make some stuff. Step functions. You do use step functions, some of you? Yes, step function is state machine. So it's a state machine that you can comment through APIs. So it's a very good way to, when we launch it, to articulate executions of Lambda functions. So if you have an execution of one Lambda functions and you want at the end or at the output of it, so you start at the end of the execution, you want to make a decision. If the output is 1, I do that function. If the output is 2, I do another function. So you can have workflows of execution between Lambda functions. So it's very good to do this kind of state machine, especially it's all in the cloud, because state machines is very hard to do at scale. These are state machines that you can keep 1 year and you can have human interactions. The biggest customer feedbacks is that there was no plugin or kind of not plugin, but no hooks for other services. And now we just added hooks for a bunch of services like Batch, CS, Fargate, Glue. DynamoDB, my favorite one, definitely in the lot, is because now you can do database queries based on states in there, and of course all the notification and then queues, right? So that means you get a lot more type of capabilities for your state functions. Definitely something that is going to be widely popular in my opinion, because it really fills the gap of what was missing for step function. And it's GA now, so you can already start using it, right? So it's no preview. Have you seen Firecracker? No? So Firecracker is not something you can use. It's open source. We did open source, but it's a virtual machine, new type of virtual machine. We call that micro VMs, which you can execute on your bare metal instance. So if you want to start playing with it, you can launch an i3 metal and start downloading the open source and start launching VMs. Folks, during the reInvent, started 400 VMs on one instance, literally in second. Right? So it's a new technology that we can do extremely fast startup of VMs. The demo is super impressive, and we use that under the hood, right, in AWS, and we've open sourced it. It's actually what's powering our containers, and now we're rolling out as well for Lambdas. And if you've seen, let's say, the evolutions of cold start the last year, it's a lot of it improvement is because of we're rolling out Firecracker as well for the under the hood to power our stuff. So it's well tested as well. So definitely something that you can use as well if you want to do that. On the database side, definitely one of the cool stuff. I like architectures and I like databases, and this is something that I've been waiting for quite a while. Is Aura called global database for Aura. There's if currently it does not support multi-master, so you can have a replication of your replicas across different regions with an AZ replication within that region, so you can have multiple copies of your database globally, but there's still one master, okay? Currently it's like this. You have multi-master inside the region, right? So that's how it works. DynamoDB, something that make it maybe more serverless, Marcia would say, is the on-demand capacity. And I think it's definitely something that has been big ask to make it really serverless. So it's very good for unpredictable workloads, right? So definitely, if you have unpredictable workloads and you're using DynamoDB, is something that you can look at. Now, there was a very interesting tweet today that you don't have to make a choice on demand or not. You actually can enable on demand for a certain period of time and roll back to the standard. So if you have an event that needs that is going to be unpredictable, you can actually enable it, then use it, and then come back to the standard mode. The pricing is different, of course, in unpredictable, because we have to have the capacity behind to support unpredictable workload spikes. But it's something that you have to look at it.
I think you can change once a day.
Yeah, it's once a day you can change. It's not every 10 minutes, right? But it's one a day. Transactions, as Marcia as well said, definitely something that is big. And I think it's very good for atomic operations. Like if you have counters, global counters, it's not global, right? It's regional features. So if you use transactions, you can't have a global table. That's the catch, because the global is when you use DynamoDB global table, it has asynchronous replication to other regions, so we can't do locks, right? Because locks have to be regional, and in a region we can do a lock because AZs are 1 to 2 milliseconds latency separated, so we can actually lock the table to do transactions. It's not exactly what happened under the hood, but it's some sort of lock, but you get the idea why we can't do it globally. So if you do transactions, it's bye-bye global, right? So it's one or the other currently.
10 items per transaction, like that, so they're not huge, but
yeah,
they're useful.
And I think it simplifies a lot, because before I was using the DynamoDB streams, and now you can maybe just use that.
How were you using DynamoDB streams for transaction?
Kind of faking transaction, because the DynamoDB streams, like the record gets updated, and then you can update other records, because that one gets updated, and then if something fails, then you need to create a logic to
you can roll back.
So it was not nice.
Yeah, it's kind of a hack, right?
Yeah,
so
I'm happy with that.
Now, cool stuff that we launched as well. You might have heard word ledger databases if you are into blockchains. Traditional blockchains are decentralized ledgers. We launched a centralized ledger database. So this quantum ledger database is actually a centralized ledger. So that means there's central authority that will sign every transaction in the database, so make them immutable. The cool stuff is we've been using it for many years inside Amazon, right? That's what we actually use on the hood to do some of our immutable operations. So it's our immutable kind of database. It's in preview now, so if you are interested into it, you can go and sign up for it. The interesting thing of having a centralized ledger is the required resource to compute the cryptographic ledger is much less than a distributed ledger. You don't need half of the electricity of the internet to compute it, and so that's a good thing.
Almost practically all of the kind of practical use cases that people there like this. There's a central authority for the trust.
Yeah.
All the banking
Yeah, exactly.
use
Yeah.
cases are this.
Yeah, so the use cases will be, of course, banks, will be car makers for pieces of cars. What they need to make sure that pieces of cars have the right numbers and they are part of a serial. There's a lot of use cases for that. I mean, definitely in the insurances as well and finance service. So a lot of stuff. Or simply if you want to have immutable logs, right? So if you have requirements to give logs to an authority and they need to be cryptographically verified, that's a very good way to do it. On the machine learning side, there's been interesting update. There's been a few high-level services that have been, but one that is interesting is for SageMaker. It's called Ground Truth. You probably know Mechanical Turk. It's a very old service where you can, through an API, ask people to do simple tasks. So now we integrated that in SageMaker to do ground truth. Ground truth is when you want to build a machine learning model, you need data, right? And you need annotated data. So for example, if I want to build a machine learning model that will give me recognized cars, I need to give a collections of images that tells me what car is it, and it's a human that goes and find the car in the image, annotate it and say it's a car, and then use that image to train the machine learning model, right? Machine learning model need millions of images, and those images have been humanly annotated until recently, right? There's very few algorithms that can generate that. We'll come back to it later, but most of the algorithm you need to annotate data, and therefore you need to be humans, and this was a big problem for customers where they had the algorithm, they had the data, but they didn't have the resource to ask people to, let's say, annotate tens of millions of images. And now you can, through SageMaker, through an API, you can expose a collection of images, ask the annotations, and Ground Truth will do all the work for you to distribute that work and then feed that directly into SageMaker as a feedback loop. And you can have this as a constant improvement in your model as well, which is pretty interesting.
Does it use recognition?
It doesn't only do for images, right? It's for any type of annotation, but it uses humans behind, right? That do micro tasks, right? So that's what it is. We also added quite a few algorithms. If you've used, how many of you use SageMaker a little bit? No, not too much. Do you know what SageMaker is? All right, so SageMaker is our machine learning kind of platform. You launch an AMI under the hood. There's a notebook, Jupyter notebook, where you can write your model and train. So you can train, build, train, and deploy. There's 3 phases in SageMaker. The interesting thing is we provided quite a few algorithms which we use internally and that we've made or claim that they are some of the top performing algorithm out there, and we've made a lot of improvement to some of those algorithms. We did 10x improvement on some of the big algorithm we had there, and so there's quite a few there. We added 40% since the launch, right? Now the interesting thing is many people used what we call model zoos, or to download models from the internet, people or scientists that created models, and it was very difficult. They didn't have a place where they could say, oh, I've created a very good model, I might want to sell it for, let's say, for a few dollars or something like this. So now we created, actually, through SageMaker, a marketplace for machine learning models. So I mean, if you're a data scientist and you are very good at creating models, machine learning models, you can now get paid for it, which is great. That means that you, as a data scientist, you don't need to build the solutions and all an API behind the hood. You can just build your model and start selling it. So I think it's going to be pretty interesting to see what kind of models are coming. There's already a bunch that are available there, right there. Another cool launch is Neo. It's to do model optimization. And this is really to bring
So when you create machine learning, very often you want to deploy them on some existing device, let's say a deep racer. And the devices are not necessarily full computer. They are like have optimization. There are boards that need to have a different kind of build. So what Neo does, it takes a model and optimize it before deployments so that you can actually have an optimized model for your devices, right? So this is something that is integrated now directly with Greengrass, right? For your IoT device, right? Very often you want to create the model, build the model in the cloud where there's a lot of power, then optimize that model and deploy in the cloud. If you used the Deep Lens, you've used Deep Lens, played with it a little bit? No? So in Deep Lens, when we launched it, we were creating the model in the cloud, deploying it on the device and optimize it on the device. So there was a long time on the device itself before you could start using the model because it was taking the model, doing optimization of the model, and this was totally not efficient. Now we do optimization in Neo, deployed optimized model, and it's right away usable, okay? And there's a bunch of pre-existing hardware that are available for optimization. On MXNet, you have access to dynamic training. So that means that you can have dynamically allocate resources for your training on MXNet. That's one of the big things we do. For me, very, very interesting because it's opening a door to a new kind of machine learning models, which is RL model, which are models that learn, right? So they are machine. So for example, you have learn by experiments. Instead of giving it, let's say, an annotated image and say, this is a car, the model will start guessing stuff, and you give it a reward function plus or minus 1, for example, every time you say something that is pretty good, or minus 1 when it's not a wrong answer. And through thousands and millions of experiments, eventually that particular function learns the right thing, right? So it's new kind of machine learning. It's used a lot for discovery. If you are in a game and you want to find the best way to solve, let's say, a problem, reinforcement learning is a very, very good way to do that. It's very simple, a lot of experiment, reward function, and then do as many experiments as you can. And then it will eventually learn the right thing. And SageMaker now supports has the capability to play with reinforcement learning, and definitely something that is interesting because you have algorithms that are accessible. In fact, Deep Racer is using just that. So on the track, there's a track, it's black, and there's white limits. How you train your Deep Racer is you train it to recognize an image of a track, and if it does something good, like goes forward when it's straight, the reward function is +1. If it turns right when there's a turn right, you +1. But if it does left or comes off the track after a change of image, you get -1. And then you retrain a lot, right? So, and this is why it's very interesting because during the keynote, the track had one turn right. All the other turns were left. So the cars learn much better to turn left. And most of them failed at turning right because you need a lot of training, right? It's very interesting for me because it gives you the scale at which autonomous driving is today. It's so hard to train a car to just follow a track, and autonomous driving cars are actually pretty damn good. For me, it was just a realization that we're actually very, very advanced in autonomous driving, and get to learn that stuff because it's already there.
So yeah, you can check out the car. It has a tiny little battery for driving the wheels and a big battery to drive the computer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what it is. It's a lot. It's a lot of computation, right? But it's definitely something that is the future, right? Reinforcement learning is opening. If you thought deep learning changed the world, wait, reinforcement learning. It's definitely something that is, in my opinion, is going to be pretty interesting. So in that case, there is this is a very good way to use reinforcement learning. This is Pac-Man.
And you basically give it a reward function every time Pac-Man moves and eats something, give it points, and every time it's a ghost and dies, you give it a negative value, right? And then you launch it every time, and you can do millions of simulation, and they've managed to solve all the Pac-Man, let's say, what is it called, like strategies, like as fast as possible, way faster than humans, right? Anyway, some of the high-level services that have been launched is real-time personalization. It's called personalized. So you can imagine on Amazon.com, we do a lot of recommendation when you buy something, what you might be interested in, or what your friends have bought together, all this kind of stuff. So it's called a personalization, and that's high-level services. So high-level APIs. We learn from what you feed the system, right? So it's definitely based on your data. So you load the data, the system inspects the data, automatically selects the right algorithm for what you want to personalize, and then train the models. And over time, it will improve itself, right? So a lot of interest there, because it's all managed, right? You don't have to do anything. You just feed the data, and then you have a model that you can use, which gives you personalization based on all the algorithm or the technology we use at Amazon. So it's pretty cool. It works well. It worked well for Amazon. Another one is forecast. Again, similar kind of stuff. It's mostly for doing forecasting, so sales forecasting or all this kind of stuff. It's also using time series data. So you can integrate it with your supply chain systems and do a forecast. This is something that definitely is really cool. I just got previewed today, so I'm happy I can start playing with it. I didn't have the time to play, but so I can't do demo. But it's a service that you can give documents, and it will extract text. And if there's a table, it actually extracts the table as is and recreates the table in a proper formatted way, so that you can do, let's say, intelligent OCR. Right? That's the whole point. So that means you can do a lot of analysis on your own documents and start to expose that maybe through an API if you want to sell data that you have in documents or things like that. On the security level, there's a couple of stuff that are pretty interesting. Bear in mind that actually I've filtered 90% of the slides, right? So this is how much cool, crazy things they've been released. Security Hub, definitely something that is interesting for enterprises. It's a place where you can have all your security put in place. So if you use the GuardDuty, Inspector, Macy, it's a place where you'll have everything there. So instead of having to go to all the different services, you have one place to look for all your security. The Security Hub, yeah, so you can see that.
And cross accounts, I mean,
yeah, that's the big thing, right? So cross account, right? That's the big thing, definitely. Resource Access Manager. I have no idea. I forgot. If you want to share resources between AWS accounts, okay. Let's move on. Hello. This is Control Tower. This is interesting. If you have a multi-account environment for enterprises and you want to be having standard governance across the accounts, this Control Tower allows you to do that. So that before you had to manage that on account level or through organization, it was a bit more complicated. Now, Control Tower allows you to do that very easily. If you use landing zones currently in enterprises, it's very similar, right? It's a landing zone where you can then move people around. Private marketplace. So the marketplace for AMIs and all that stuff was public. Now you can have your own, and you can for internal or private use. So if you have a need for that, you can use that. Something that is interesting, if you've worked with Amazon and Solutions Architect in the last
in the last 4 years, we've been doing what we call well-architected reviews. So we bring an account manager with a solution architect into account for a full day, and we help you understanding the architectures and have a lot of questions and improve it, find the goods and the bads. We've made a tool out of it so that actually you can do a lot of the evaluation yourself. So we ask a lot of questions regarding your architectures. So that gives you points of discussion, with your team, things you might not know worked or thought of. I've done 20 of those well-architected review with customers. Trust me, even the best of the customers always add stuff that they didn't think of. Because there's so much to think of, so it's always a good thing to do those reviews. Now there's not as many solutions architects as there are customers, so we had to scale and find a way. So we did this tool, and that's definitely something that people should start using. It gives you a way to implement best practices in your account, which is great. License manager, that's pretty obvious what it does. If you have workloads that are using licenses like Oracle, Microsoft, and all this kind of other licenses, this is a way to store them in all one place, so that we'll help you manage those licenses from third-party vendors, right? But on the mobile side, this is quite interesting. If you are deploying static websites and you liked Amplify, Amplify has launched a new service called Amplify Console, which is actually a continuous delivery for automatically building so your project, if you have a Git project, or if you're in GitLab or GitHub or Commit, you can do a commit and push, and then the whole pipeline will kick off until the end and do the deployment. I'll do a demo live of that soonish. Amplify. How many of you know Amplify? Yeah, it's very interesting. Definitely a project. On the far future, we're talking about Robot Maker. This is a service that will help, that's supposed to help build intelligent robot application. It has different ways to do this. I'm not an expert in robot making, but what's interesting is you can start building your robot, and then instead of deploying into your robot model, instead of deploying into a robot and do applications there, you can actually run simulations. So that means, and you can run simulation faster than time. So that means you can accelerate learning and accelerate deployment. So that's something that definitely is cool. And you can manage fleets, right, through IoT devices. So if you have thousands of robots, you can deploy your model to a fleet and manage that. We started to look at space. So if you've seen the launch, we actually launched something which is interesting called Ground Station. Satellite sends a lot of data down, right? And all that data needs to be stored and analyzed. So it fits very well to the cloud. Now, it's been very, very popular in the last few years to have nano, pico satellites. So people that build their own satellites and can launch. But it's been very, very expensive for those people to build ground stations. It's literally hundreds of thousands of euros equipment. So AWS style, we abstract that, and now you can actually have your ground station as a service, and you can launch and manage satellites in low orbit or medium orbit. Pretty cool, I'd say. Beyond cloud. I don't know how we're going to be called Amazon Web Services, a cloud computing company, or space computing company. Space cloud. Yeah. So this is kind of the bunch of services, and literally I removed 80 slides. So this is you're already tired by the number of slides I put there, but it gives you an idea of, for me, what were the standout launch. It doesn't mean anything else than mine. It's not Amazon representations or it's really mine, okay? I just make that sure, it's because I don't want people to think, oh, Amazon didn't like any of the other services. It's not true.
we loved every service is just mine. And let's do some demos.
Yes.
So I will first show you. All right, let's go there. So amplify. So
I haven't seen anything.
okay, first I need to reload.
Are you showing something? The screen is empty.
Yeah,
Okay.
I am. I just need to sign first because, of course, my MFA has. Whoa, this is going wrong there. All right. Cool. All right. Let me put my screen in a mirror. Where is my mirror function?
Arrangement.
Yeah, I just called the stuff, but do you see it here? Oh yeah. Oops. What? Where is my cursor?
In the middle.
And mirror display, so it's easier. All right. So let's start with AppSync, okay? So that you have an idea what it is. So I have a website, and I'll show you what it is here. So this is my super website. It's deployed by Jekyll. Jekyll is literally a template for building a website. It's used by Werner for his all things distributed. So that's what he's using. It's pretty cool. It's hosted on S3. It's powered by Ruby. I love Ruby. And so this is how it looks like, right? So I have all that deployed basically in Git. So this is my Git, and you see I'm up to date with the branch. But if I do some modification, for example, here, let's see which one I want to modify. Well, yeah, no, not this one. The config YAML. Here, this is my Meetup demo. Meetup. Jeez. All right, let's save, and then I have that, so I can do a git add -a, and let's say, and do a git push. So what this does is actually goes directly into my project. So I have a project here, and it will kick the building of the stuff. So you have a lot of different pipeline, so you can set up your pipeline. And I think for me this is pretty cool. It's pretty easy to set up. You just add your Git link. The Amplify console looks at all the build script that you have in there and will automatically create the build pipeline for you. You don't have to do it. So you see it actually provision the whole build pipeline like this. So every time it will do this. So now let's see, probably it's in provision. So now it noticed that I have a change here. No. So it goes to my provision, creates all the required step. Hello. Okay. And then we'll eventually launch the stuff. But this is just interesting for me if you're doing like self-hosted websites. I'll just show you quickly how to do that. You just connect an app, do your GitHub. You connect your GitHub account. So here I'm connected already, so I have all my GitHub repository that are there. So this is my awesome demo. Oh my, where is it called? How is it called? My awesome demo. Of course it's not there. Amplify, did I call it like this? Wow. Anyway, you get the idea. I have this already. So if I look at the build setting, my GitHub is to do this one, domain management. a build, you have a lot of different stuff. And then it's just demo. Yeah, so you see I've deployed now my Meetup demo. So I think it's very interesting for just doing this kind of stuff. It supports a bunch of different templates, so have a look if you're into it. Something that is cool. On the Lambda side, so this is the layers. So I'll show you first that. So when you create a layer, you, for example, have a custom functions. Here, this is my custom function that literally does nothing else than just print hello from the deep layers. What I do is, what you need to do first is actually create a repository. So if you're there, so you need to create a directory structure. So for example, here I have a directory called Python libs and my function called custom function py. What I do there, you can actually, let's remove the zip. Oops. Then if I rezip the structure of the directory, so what I do, I recursively take all the files from my folder and zip them in a file called pythonlib file. So you see now it's there. And then what I can do is take that and update this as a layer. So if you go into Lambda and you go there in layers, you can create a layer and you can say, okay, test Meetup. You can take your file, upload it, select your runtime. This is Python 2.7, and then define your license. And then what it does is, then when you deploy your Lambda function, it gives you access to here. So you can say, oh, I can add my layer. And you see here, I have now my layer available for my Lambda functions. I've deployed the same, so I already have a Lambda function that is using the layer there. And notice I'm in Stockholm. Right. So I have my Lambda function here. My Lambda function is very simple. I'll show you what it does. It's importing JSON, it's import CSOS. Eventually, you could also move this away, but I just wanted to how you import a custom function. When you do a layer and you upload the zip file and you add the layer, it's deployed in the repository in the folder opt, right? And then it deploys there the directory structure. So my custom function was deployed because my folder was called Python libs. You know, that's my zip file. Then it was deployed here in the directory. And then I can import the custom function, which was the name of the function, because I've added now the path directly to Python, right? So otherwise, you would need to import from the directory, but it's much cleaner to do that. And then I import as CF. And then now I'll show you what this does. It's actually just print the directory structure just to show you how the file is in there. And then I can call my Lambda functions here. So this is actually quite an interesting way because now I can do functional programming with stuff that are in the layers. If I reuse them a lot, I think it's very clean, much nicer. And when you test that, for example, I created a test event, which is basically nothing. You just test, and you can see the execution. It returns hello from Lambda layers. But actually, this is the listing of the directory structure. So you see my folder there is custom function, and then hello from deep layers. But now let's do a change. Like if I add another layer, here. If I add another layer here, let's say this one, and I want to import that, it will probably crash because it will have two versions of the system. So it's the same function, so yeah, okay. It's been deployed the same way, so it doesn't duplicate the functions, it's overrides. So the first layer, I would need to change the name. You can deploy 5 layers, so the first layer, by arrangement, deploys the function, the second layer will override, so you can do overrides of layers as well, like that, okay? So it respects that, it doesn't deploy twice the same. But that's coming from the second layer, not the first one. Yeah, so it's this, that's the thing. Using layer doesn't increase the limit. It's the same limit as your original package that you have currently. It doesn't change that.
But is there a limit for layer?
It's the same package limit that you have currently. Hasn't changed.
It's not like you get 5 times that.
No. No. It's one time.
So it's
250 one time.
All the layers together.
Yes.
So
yeah.
you need to you cannot have a really big import.
No. No. Same. It's exactly the same size of what you can deploy currently, but just with layers. Right? And your layer has to respect the size of the import package.
Yeah, but the question is, it doesn't add it extra space.
No.
Oh.
It will. What do you mean? Doesn't?
Like, for example, the Lambda, I think, is 250 megas,
Yeah.
and it's unpacked. So now we don't have 5 times 200.
No.
Okay.
So
you need to be
That's
very
right.
careful with the size of the layers.
Absolutely.
Now everything is kind of distributed. Before everything was inside your function, so you have control.
Fair point. Yeah. 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 It's good. So that's.
They have the same life cycle as the function, so it doesn't really affect any like cold start latencies or anything like that. It's
No.
the same download.
Yeah. Same stuff. Doesn't affect anything.
How do you do this with serverless framework?
So it already supports at launch.
The problem, at least I found, is that you use one project, serverless framework project, it deploys one platform-based stack, and then it updates the layer all the time, so you lose the benefit of having not to deploy the layer.
So you have a separate project
So you
for
should have
service
for each layer, and then you can call it with the ARN in the serverless framework thingy, and it just works nicely.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the thing. I thought that it would be smart, and no, but no. It doesn't.
Okay.
So it updates the layer.
I haven't tried with serverless framework.
I
But
tried
I read that.
yesterday,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, it's updating it every
Cool.
time.
Well, that's interesting. I think it's definitely something that is cool that you can start play with. Let's move on to the next one. So this is a Lambda function. Let's reload that. That is sitting behind an ALB. So, and this is a Lambda function that is in Stockholm. So I have a Lambda function that takes let's say there's 3 paths, right? You have a path called foo, health, and then the root. So the root returns hello world. The health checks return it's kind of an HTML body with the status code that you can affect through the environment variables here. Yeah. And then I have a handler foo that will return a bunch of stuff. It's very similar. Now, what is important to do when you have ALB is you need to return actually the exact, it's a bit different than API gateway. You need to always return is-base 24 encoded. You need to return the header content type so that actually it knows what to return, right? Otherwise, you will get an error, API gateway error, ALB error, because it doesn't know what you're expecting. Okay, so what you can do then is you can create an ALB. So let's do that. So I'll just start from scratch so you know what when you create an application load balancer, you can you're internet facing, yes, let's do that. You have to select the availability zone on which your load balancer is going to distribute the load. Yeah. Never do HTTP. You have to have the security group. This is open to HTTP only. And then here you have a target group, and then you see your Lambda functions. So you can, let's say, you can you always need to have a target group, and then within the target group, you will define a Lambda function, right? So your target group here is a Lambda function. You can define a health check. Health check here in my Lambda function is health. You saw the API that will return status code. You can define advanced health checking, so thresholds. It's a minimum of 2. You can't have just 1. It will fail. Threshold here, your timeout always need to be less than the interval, naturally, and then you can register your target, and here either you can enter your Lambda function or add your function later, or you can do like this. So here, just adding, and then you can define which alias versions you want to do them, and then you can create. And then it's added there. And now you'll see my Lambda function here will have 2 application load balancers, because now I've registered 2 of them. So you see there's 2 application load balancer. Okay. So then you can take that, my application load balancer. It has a DNS record, and then you can do something like this and say, and it will eventually return your Lambda function code. So now this is directly from the ELB that is sitting in Stockholm. Well, that's pretty cool. And you can of course so yeah, get the idea. You can do a bunch of stuff. All right. So this is my Lambda functions. So these were in Stockholm, but now. Let's go back here. Now what you can do is actually here global. What I want to demo is the global accelerator. Right. So now I'm connected to the internet, and I created a global accelerator. It's very simple. You just create accelerator, and once you have created an accelerator, you need to create listeners, listener IDs. They have different endpoints, right? You have a listener, and they can listen to different endpoints in different regions. So here, for example, I have a listener that has 2 endpoints. One of the endpoint is US East 1 and US East 2. Is exactly this Lambda functions that I just demoed with the health check, the foo, and stuff like that. So it's exactly that. This is the Lambda function beyond an ALB. Okay, so if he wants to show. And this is in Oregon, and I have an ALB that is forwarding the request to a Lambda function in Oregon. The exact same Lambda functions, okay? So I have 2 Lambda functions with ALBs in 2 different regions. So it means I have a global backend. And now what I want is my customers, my users, to connect as fast as possible. So I created this global accelerator. What this does is actually, you see, it gives me 2 set of IP address. These, they are called anycast address, right? So these are the ones that I was mentioning about. They can be advertised. It's advertised at the edge of the network. So that means that the clients that will connect to the IP address will go as fast as possible to an edge location on the Amazon network, and then traverse the rest of the route through the network, Amazon network. So very fast and controlled latency. So my global accelerator as all healthy, because I defined a health check. 2 things: if your endpoint monitors elastic IP, which then have some instances, you need to create the health check on the listener here. So each listener will have an health check that will monitor, let's say, GCP traffic or things like that. If you use an ALB, you use the health check of the ALB, because the ALB has its own health check, and then it reports the status healthy directly to the listener. So here I'm all healthy because you see my Lambda functions. Lambda functions have all the status 200, and my health check reported 200. So when I do this now, and I check the ALB here, and I can do a health, it will return 400, right? So now my status code in my Lambda functions is returning a 400, so that means the global accelerator, we'll start to see this as unhealthy. And then when, well, okay, of course it doesn't see it now. And then when I connect here, it will connect just to the remaining instance, so never back to West. But actually what I want to show you is maybe something more cool. If we put this back to 200, so healthy again. So I'm in Oregon, so that means I'm going to have 2 healthy routes. So let's make sure that everything is back to healthy. Yeah. It's going to take 90 seconds. So there's 90 seconds for unhealthy to go back to healthy. So the failover is much faster because I had two thresholds of 10 seconds. So it's 20 seconds. So that means pretty fast failover. And now it's back all unhealthy. So if I connect to my IP address, now you notice I'm always connecting to the east, right? Because New York is much closer in terms of latency than West Oregon. But now I'm going to connect through to my VPN. So let's do that. I'll connect to VPN. So I need my VPN access. And I'll connect. Oops. Let's do cancel. I'll connect to Seattle. I have an endpoint in Seattle. And then I can, ooh, this is super advanced connection. So this is our VPN connection, and now I'm going to be based in Seattle. So that means I'm going to be much closer to Oregon. So ideally, then when I connect to the Anycast IP address, it should provide Oregon, right? So there we go. So that means the selection of traffic doesn't cache anything. It's pure IP address, pure immediate traffic. So it's super, super interesting for a lot of the customers that don't use DNS for routing global applications. So a lot of the video apps or media serving companies use IP address because of that kind of stuff. Actually, CloudFront uses Anycast under the hood to expose also the POP sensing layers. So it's much easier to route traffic to the edge. You know, but CloudFront, most of the content distribution network use Anycast because you always want to connect to the closest location, right? So now it's available for you to connect to your application, and I think this is definitely a big deal if you are into deploying global application, which is something I am totally fan of. That's been what I've been writing for the last year. So, well, I guess that's pretty much it for the demos, really. I don't want to take.
It's just one lambda per ALB, or
right. So that's the
per target group, or what?
That's the catch, right? Currently, your ALB, your target group can only have one lambda function.
Yeah, but you can have a bunch of target groups.
Yeah.
You can have one lambda. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Because I guess that the use case that normally would come to mind is that you have an application that you've had to mix API gateway and perhaps an instance, EC2 instance or ALB.
Yeah.
And you do it with CloudFront or something. Now it's much simpler. You can mix it at the ALB.
Absolutely, yeah.
Lambda functions and whatever.
Yeah, in the slide there were lambda functions. You can have a Docker container, you have Fargate, you can have your EC2 instance. So your target group will have maybe
HTTPS offloading is kind of benefit. You'll have a simple, you can get from ACM a free certificate.
Yeah. It will be managed at the ALB. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you don't have to do magic on the client to serve different type of traffic. If you want serverless or content or things like this, now it's all aligned. So this is definitely a great use case for it. And you can, of course, do nested ALBs as well behind if you want. That's pretty much it. What I have it's just a little teaser, a little bit, but this is something you can do really today. All the previews, if you are interested in service, really go online on the website, sign for the previews, and then contact your AM and solutions architect rep and say, That's the account number. Please escalate. Do something for me. I didn't say that. Sorry. I love you. I love you, USAs. No, but that's the way to go. It's something that you're really interested in and you want to give feedback to. Definitely do. I always say to customers, being in a preview is always very interesting. It's not something that will be production, but the process, very often we work very closely with customers in previews, and then they give feedbacks directly. It's a very interesting process. All right, good. Some questions regarding that? Or reInvent in general? Or? No? Cool. Excited about all the lunch? Yeah, nice. Awesome.
So you say who is the winner, so I don't need to.
Yeah, so thanks everyone for coming. We're going to be celebrating our advanced AWS partnership, and the sauna is warm, so everyone is free to stay over as long as you like. I guess I'll kick people out after midnight or something.
If you're able to.
Yeah, I'm awake.
Be the secretary.
Who
wins the book?
Oh, this.
That's it. If the person is not here, then we take an hour.
Antti Vittikainen.
Is it here? Or in the other room?
Antti.
If you are not coming, we take another paper.
Wait,
Yay!
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're allowed to give a hug to Marcia.
I give you a book. Come.
A hug for a book. That's a good deal.
Thank you.
Yeah.